The speakerphone crackled at 6:13 a.m., dragging me from sleep. My father's voice came through ragged and broken. "Camille, the Titan Aerospace account is gone. $8 million. They walked." I sat up in bed, heart hammering. Through the speaker, I heard voices overlapping in panic. Someone from the bank was talking about covenant breaches and 72-hour windows. Then I heard her. My sister Sloane, sharp and defensive, blaming procurement, blaming quality control, blaming everyone. "This isn't my fault," Sloane said. "The procurement team didn't catch the spec change. And honestly, Camille poisoned that relationship years ago with her attitude." My throat burned. I hadn't worked at Hayes Precision Components in over a year. Not since Dad signed the transfer papers that gave the entire company to Sloane. Not since I trained her for 12 months, documented every system I'd built, and watched her smile as I packed my desk into cardboard boxes. "Patrick, we need answers by Thursday," the bank representative said. "Or the covenants trigger automatically." My father made a sound like a wounded animal. "Please, Camille. I need you. Can you come in?" I stared at my phone in the darkness. The betrayal was still fresh. The memory of that signing day, of being told I was too hard on people, of watching my life's work handed to someone who'd never even run a shift report. But underneath the anger, something else stirred. The part of me that built systems, that solved problems, that couldn't watch things burn even when I had every right to walk away. "I'll be there in an hour," I said. "My name is Camille Hayes, and this is the story of how I lost everything, then got called back to save it all." Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for more interesting revenge stories. I walked into the conference room at Hayes Precision at 7:30 a.m. The faces around the table were familiar, haunted. My father sat at the head, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen him. Sloane occupied my old seat, arms crossed, jaw tight. 3 board members I recognized. The company attorney. And a man in a gray suit I didn't know, presumably from the bank. Nobody met my eyes except Luis, the production supervisor I'd personally trained. He gave me the smallest nod. I didn't sit. I didn't touch the coffee someone had poured for me. I stood at the foot of the table and looked at my father. "If I help, it's not as a favor," I said. "I need temporary operational control for 30 days. Full authority over production, quality, and vendor management. An independent audit of what went wrong. And complete non-interference from everyone in this room. In writing." Sloane laughed. It was a harsh sound. "You can't be serious. This is still my company." "Then handle it yourself," I said. The bank representative cleared his throat. "Ms. Hayes, we don't have time for family drama. The client gave formal notice Saturday. Their legal team is already drafting termination papers. Which is why you need someone who knows how to fix this," I said. I kept my eyes on my father. "Do we have a deal or not?" Dad looked at the attorney, who pulled a document from his briefcase. "There's a performance reversion clause in the succession paperwork," the attorney said quietly. "It was meant as a safeguard. Never expected to use it." He slid the papers across the table to my father. "It gives temporary operational authority to a designated officer in cases of material business threat," the attorney continued. 30 days, renewable by board vote. My father's hand shook as he signed. Sloane stood up so fast her chair rolled back and hit the wall. "She won't need it," Sloane said. "Because I'll fix this myself." I picked up the signed document. "You have until end of business today to show me every communication with Titan Aerospace for the past 6 months. Every purchase order, every vendor change, every email. All of it." The bank representative actually smiled. I spent the rest of Monday morning in the quality assurance lab, surrounded by binders I'd created years ago. The systems were still there, buried under new shortcuts and workarounds, but the bones remained. I pulled batch logs for the failed shipment. Temperature histories. Courier tracking. Chain of custody documentation. Everything was filed exactly where I'd designed it to be filed, which meant the failure wasn't in record keeping. It was in decision making. At 11:47 a.m., I found it. A vendor code that didn't match our approved supplier list. The titanium subcomponents, the ones that failed inspection at Titan's facility, had come from a different manufacturer. Not the one we'd used for 6 years. Not the one I'd personally vetted and built into our standard operating procedures. I traced the approval chain. 3 signatures were required for vendor changes on aerospace contracts. I found 2 easily, the procurement manager and the quality director. The 3rd signature, the final authorization, was dated 4 months ago. Sloane's initials were right there in blue ink. I photographed the document with my phone. Then I found the email thread that accompanied the change. Subject line, Margin Improvement Initiative. Sloane had written, new vendor quotes 22% lower on titanium subcomponents. Same specs on paper. Let's move forward. We need wins this quarter. The procurement manager had replied, original vendor has never missed a delivery. Are we sure about this? Sloane's response, I'm sure. Make the change. I sat back in my chair, document in hand, rage and vindication warring in my chest. This wasn't sabotage. It was arrogance. It was someone who'd never spent a night on the production floor, who'd never held a micrometer, who'd never watched a client walk because a part was 3/1007 out of spec. My phone buzzed. An email from Titan Aerospace's VP of Operations. We'll hear one plan for corrective action. Tomorrow. In person at our facility in Phoenix. Bring documentation. This is your only chance. I forwarded the email to my father and the board. Then I went back to building the case. At 3:15 p.m., I was walking past the glassed-in huddle room near marketing when I saw them. Sloane and her fiancé, Trevor, who'd somehow become a strategic advisor to the company despite having no manufacturing experience. They were standing at the whiteboard, and Trevor was holding a marker. I slowed my pace, staying just out of their line of sight. Trevor wrote, Legacy System Failure. We say the quality tracking software Camille built had a hidden bug, Sloane said. Something that only surfaced under the new vendor's slightly different specifications. We say we're fixing it now, but the root cause was in the old infrastructure. Trevor nodded. Put it on her. She can't defend herself without looking defensive. Exactly, Sloane said. And if the board starts asking why she's really here, we say Dad panicked. We say we had it under control, but he brought in his favorite daughter and now she's making it worse. I felt my phone in my pocket. I pulled it out, pretended to check an email, and angled it toward the glass. The reflection of the whiteboard was clear. I took 3 photos with timestamps. I wouldn't use them unless I had to. But I would keep them. I walked away before they saw me. My father's voice echoed in my head from a year ago, you're too hard on people, Camille. Maybe I was. Or maybe I just didn't lie. Back in my temporary office, my father appeared in the doorway. His face was gray. Did you find anything? I showed him the vendor change document. I showed him the emails. I watched him age another 5 years in 30 seconds. She was trying to help, he said weakly. She was trying to improve margins. She was trying to cut corners, I said. And it cost us $8 million. He sat down heavily. Can you fix it? I don't know yet, I said. But I fly to Phoenix tomorrow morning. And Dad? I waited until he looked at me. Tell Sloane to be kind. I'm under a lot of pressure. His face crumpled. He'd said those exact words to me 100 times when I was the one cleaning up problems. The flight to Phoenix was 2 hours I spent building a presentation I'd have to deliver to people who had every reason to never trust us again. I had lot numbers. I had temperature deviation reports. I had the misspec parts sitting in Titan's rejection bin. I had a corrective action plan mapped to 14 days with staged recovery, penalty absorption, and a 2-year service credit. What I didn't have was confidence they'd listen. Titan Aerospace's facility was immaculate. Their VP of Operations, a woman named Valerie Cross, met me in a conference room with 3 engineers and their general counsel. Nobody smiled. "You have 30 minutes, Valerie said. I didn't waste time on apologies. I opened with the root cause analysis. I showed them the vendor swap, the approval chain, and the specifications that failed. I showed them our corrective action, return to the original vendor, implement dual source verification, and add batch testing at 3 stages instead of 1. Then I showed them the timeline. 14 days. Every milestone documented. Every penalty we'd absorb for late delivery. Every service credit we'd provide for 2 years. Valerie studied the plan without speaking. One of the engineers asked about our quality certifications. I answered with certification numbers and renewal dates I'd memorized years ago. The general counsel asked who would be accountable for execution. I will, I said. Personally. Every milestone will have my signature. Valerie leaned back. If you miss a single milestone, the contract auto-terminates. No extensions. No renegotiation. We have a secondary supplier ready to step in. My throat went dry. Understood. We'll decide by noon tomorrow, Valerie said. That's all. I flew home not knowing if I'd just saved the company or signed my name to its death certificate. I landed in Charlotte at 9:47 p.m. and drove straight to the plant. The second shift was running, but something felt wrong. The CNC machines were idle. The assembly stations were half-staffed. I found Luis in the break room. Where is everyone? He looked uncomfortable. Sloan pulled 6 technicians this afternoon. Put them on her prototype project. Said it was priority 1. The prototype. Sloan's pet project, a speculative contract that didn't even have a purchase order yet. She'd been talking about it for months like it was going to revolutionize the company. Pull them back, I said. She said. I have operational authority, I said. Pull them back now. We have 14 days to rebuild Titan's trust, and we can't do it with half a crew. Luis made the calls. By 10:30 p.m., the technicians were back on the main production line. I stayed until midnight, watching the first corrected batch move through initial machining. The systems I'd built years ago were still sound. The people remembered how to use them. I was walking to my car when my phone buzzed. An email from marketing. Subject, Customer Communication Draft. I opened it. Someone had written a press release announcing that Hayes Precision had resolved all quality concerns with Titan Aerospace and was proud to continue our partnership. It was scheduled to go out at 8 a.m. We hadn't even gotten approval from Titan yet. We hadn't completed a single milestone. This would be a lie, a public lie, that would destroy any remaining credibility we had. I called the marketing director at 12:18 a.m. who approved this release. Sloan did. She said you were being too cautious, that we needed to control the narrative. Kill it, I said. Nothing goes out until Titan signs. Nothing. There was a long pause. She's not going to like that. She doesn't have to, I said. Kill it. I hung up and stared at the dark factory. This wasn't going to be a rescue. This was going to be a war. Tuesday morning, I reinstated a quality gate I'd created 3 years ago, the one Sloan had eliminated 6 months into her tenure. It was simple, no customer communication about production status until QA signed off on completed work. The marketing director sent me a formal complaint by 9 a.m. Sloan forwarded it to the entire board with a note, Camille is blocking essential business communication and tanking team morale. I replied to the board with a single sentence, we don't promise what we haven't delivered. At 10:33 a.m., my phone rang. Titan Aerospace. I answered on the first ring. We'll give you the 14 days, Valerie said. But the terms are non-negotiable. Miss one milestone, and we're done. Paperwork is being sent now. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. Just deliver. I walked onto the production floor and gathered everyone I could find. Luis. The quality inspectors. The CNC operators. The shipping coordinator. We have 2 weeks to prove we deserve a second chance, I said. No shortcuts. No exceptions. We do this right, or we don't do it at all. One of the younger machinists raised his hand. Sloan said you were going to slow us down with old rules. Sloan isn't running production right now, I said. I am. And the rules aren't old. They're what kept us on time for 6 straight years before I left. I saw belief flicker across their faces. These were people I'd trained. People who'd watched the company stumble after I was pushed out. At 2 p.m., a senior VP I barely knew cornered me in the hallway. Sloan says you're undermining her leadership. She says you've been bitter ever since the succession. I looked at him. Did she mention the vendor swap that cost us $8 million? He blinked. That's what I thought, I said. I walked away before he could respond. I didn't have time for politics. I had 13 days left. Wednesday night, I found Luis on the second shift again. He was standing at his workstation, staring into a drawer. What's wrong? I asked. He pulled out a handful of metal components. They were parts that had failed inspection, marked with red rejection tags. Someone told me to rework these without logging them. My stomach dropped. Who? I don't know. Instructions came through the shift lead. Just said to clean them up and run them through again, no paperwork. This was how failures happened. Shadow rework streams that inflated yield numbers on paper while hiding quality problems. I'd designed the system specifically to prevent this, and someone had dismantled it. From now on, nothing gets reworked without a quality review and a signed deviation, I said. I don't care who tells you differently. Luis nodded. He looked relieved. I took the rejected parts and locked them in the QA cage. Then I sent an email to the entire production team reiterating the rework policy. I copied the board. At 11:47 p.m., I got an email notification. The third-party auditor I'd hired was arriving Thursday morning, 2 days ahead of schedule. Good. Let them see everything. I was driving home when my phone rang. The bank's risk officer, a man named Malcolm Vance. I'll be observing recovery operations on site tomorrow, he said. Just so you know. Understood, I said. Ms. Hayes, he said, I've reviewed your operational history with the company. The bank wants to see those systems back in place. Permanently. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just said, I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something else. Possibility, maybe. Or vindication. I wasn't sure which. The auditor's name was Nina Reeves, and she didn't waste time. She arrived at 7 a.m. Thursday and immediately requested access to approval chains, override logs, and deviation reports from the past 18 months. By noon, she'd mapped the informal system that had replaced my documented procedures. Approval signed off as lead, S without full names. Verbal authorizations from PH instead of written sign-offs. Vendor changes pushed through without the full 3-signature requirement. This isn't fraud, Nina said to me privately. But it's high-risk culture. Speed prioritized over specification compliance. Can you document it? I asked. Already am, she said. At 1:15 p.m., Malcolm Vance arrived from the bank. He wanted a floor walk. I took him through the production line, showing him the reinstated batch tracking, the double verification checkpoints, the calibrated measurement tools, the scrap bins now properly labeled and logged. He stopped at the QA station where Luis was inspecting parts with a micrometer. This is what the bank wants to see, Malcolm said. Process discipline. It's what I've always wanted to see, I said. We passed the prototype lab on the way back to the offices. Through the glass wall, I could see Sloan inside with Trevor and 2 engineers. Expensive equipment running. Resources being consumed. Malcolm saw it too. What's that project? Speculative R&D, I said. No purchase order yet. His expression tightened. While you're in crisis recovery? Not my decision, I said. Back in the conference room, Malcolm reviewed the updated production schedule. I want weekly status reports sent directly to me, he said. Not through general management. Through you. Understood, I said. After he left, I returned to my office to find Sloane's latest social media post on my screen. Someone had forwarded it. She'd taken a selfie in the prototype lab with the caption, "Innovation never sleeps." I closed the browser and went back to work. Friday night, my father called. Can you come to dinner? Please. Just family. I almost said no. But something in his voice made me agree. I arrived at my parents' house at 7 p.m. My mother hugged me without speaking. Sloane was already at the table, Trevor beside her. We ate in terrible silence until Sloane finally spoke. You're undermining me, she said. In front of the board, in front of the bank, in front of our own employees. I'm trying to save the company, I said. By making me look incompetent, she said. She slid a printed document across the table. It was the legacy bug narrative, formatted like an internal memo. This is the real cause of the Titan failure. A software flaw in the quality tracking system you built. We're just now discovering it. I looked at the memo. It was sophisticated, technical sounding, completely fictional. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. On the screen was the vendor change document with Sloane's signature. The email about margin improvement. The original timeline showing the change happened 4 months ago, long after any bug would have surfaced. The client already has my analysis, I said. They know the real cause. Sloane's face flushed red. If we go down, Camille, you're going down with us. You think Dad's going to choose you over me again? I looked at my father. He was staring at his plate. I think the company is going to make it or fail based on whether we hit our milestones, I said. Not on whose feelings get hurt. I left before dessert. Saturday night, I brought coffee and breakfast sandwiches to the weekend shift. It was 2 a.m., and only a skeleton crew was running, but they were the ones who'd keep us on schedule. We gathered around the big whiteboard in the production bay. I drew the 14-day timeline in blue marker. Every milestone. Every checkpoint. Every person responsible. This is the plan, I said. It's not complicated. It's just disciplined. We measure twice. We document everything. We don't skip steps. Can we do this? Louis spoke first. We can. Others nodded. One of the younger CNC operators said, It's good to have you back, Camille. Something in my chest cracked open. These were the people I'd trained, mentored, built alongside. They'd been adrift for a year. So had I. Let's run it right, I said. By 5 a.m., the plant sounded like it used to. Rhythmic. Purposeful. Precise. I was heading home when my phone buzzed. Email from Titan Aerospace. Mid-plan inspection scheduled for Tuesday, day 7. Our quality team will be on site at 9 o'clock. Bring all documentation. I forwarded it to the team with a single line, we have 72 hours to be perfect. Then I drove home, showered, and came back to the plant at 8 a.m. Sunday morning. Monday was final preparation for the inspection. We ran mock walkthroughs. Calibrated every measurement tool. Staged all documentation. Triple-checked the batch travelers. At 3:47 p.m., one of the quality inspectors called me to the measurement station. A single gauge was reading 0.006 inches off specification. It's been drifting, Luis admitted. I should have caught it sooner. We recalibrated. Then I added a second gauge as redundancy and updated the procedure to require dual measurement on critical dimensions. At 6:22 p.m., I got an email notification that the auditor's afternoon interviews had been cancelled. The calendar invite showed my name as the one who'd cancelled them. I hadn't cancelled anything. I called Nina immediately. I didn't cancel your interviews. The email came from your account, she said. I pulled up the server logs with IT. The cancellation had originated from an assistant's computer, using delegated access to my email account. Sloane's assistant. IT locked all delegated access immediately and restored Nina's interview schedule. But the intent was clear. Someone was trying to sabotage the audit. At 9:13 p.m., my father called. Malcolm Vance arrived early. He wants a floor walk first thing tomorrow morning. Why is he here early? I asked. I don't know, Dad said. But Camille, please. Be ready. I hung up and looked at the production schedule. We had 8 hours before Malcolm arrived. 8 hours before Titan's inspection team followed 24 hours later. I sent a message to Luis and the weekend crew, final push. Let's show them what we've got. Malcolm Vance arrived at 6:30 a.m. Tuesday. I met him in the parking lot, still holding my coffee. Early start, I said. I wanted to see the operation without preparation time, he said. Fair enough. We walked the floor. Scrap bins labeled and logged. Batch travelers attached to every work order. Measurement tools with calibration stickers and redundancy checks. The production schedule visible on white boards. People working steadily, purposefully. Malcolm stopped at Luis's station. Talk me through your process. Luis didn't hesitate. He showed the part specification. The measurement sequence. The documentation chain. The reject criteria. Everything I'd trained him to do years ago. Malcolm nodded. Then he turned to me. The bank wants weekly production reports sent directly to you for the duration of the recovery. You'll report to me. Understood, I said. And Ms. Hayes, he said, if this recovery succeeds, the bank will require these controls to remain permanent as a condition of continued financing. He left at 8:15 a.m. At 8:47 a.m., I saw a new social media post forwarded by someone in marketing. Sloane in the prototype lab again, same smile, new caption, building tomorrow while others focus on yesterday. I didn't have time to care. Titan's inspection team was arriving in 30 minutes. Valerie Cross arrived with 2 quality engineers and a materials specialist. They didn't small talk. They went straight to the production floor and started measuring. They pulled random samples. They checked calibration certificates. They reviewed batch travelers and temperature logs. They interviewed Luis and 2 other operators. I stood nearby, available but not hovering. Every answer they needed was in the documentation. At 11:34 a.m., one of the engineers asked the question I'd been dreading. Why did you change vendors in the first place? I didn't deflect. The previous leadership made a vendor change to reduce costs. The new supplier specifications looked equivalent on paper but failed under operational conditions. I wasn't involved in that decision. I am involved in correcting it. The engineer studied me. And you're confident in the corrective action? Yes, I said. Valerie made notes without speaking. At 12:15 p.m., they finished. We'll return on day 14 for final acceptance, she said. Everything we've seen today meets standards. Don't lose momentum. After they left, I found Luis in the break room. He was shaking. I thought they were going to shut us down. They still might, I said. But not today. I went back to my office and found my father standing in the doorway. He looked like he'd been crying. They're giving us a chance, I said. He nodded. I'm sorry, Camille. For everything. Don't apologize yet, I said. We still have 7 days. Wednesday morning, the prototype lab pulled argon gas from the main supply line. The CNC booths, which needed steady argon flow for precision welding, started failing mid-operation. Parts were ruined. The schedule slipped by 4 hours. I walked into the prototype lab at 10:12 a.m. Sloan and Trevor were monitoring some kind of speculative alloy test. "You're starving the main line," I said. "This is critical research," Sloan said. "So is the Titan recovery," I said. "I'm rerouting supply and locking this lab until we complete the contract." "You can't lock me out of my own company," she said. I walked to the gas manifold and closed the valve feeding the lab. Then I placed a physical lock on it and pocketed the key. "Yes," I said. "I can." Trevor stepped forward. "You're out of line." I pulled the performance reversion clause from my bag and set it on the prototype workbench. Temporary operational control includes resource allocation. Take it up with the board. Sloane's face went white, then red. She stared at the document, at me, then back at the locked valve. "This isn't over," she said. "No," I said. "It's not." I walked out and rerouted argon back to the main production line. By 2 p.m., we were back on schedule. At 4:47 p.m., Sloan appeared in my office doorway. "You can't lock me out of my company." I looked up from my laptop. "Read the clause your father signed. Non-interference is explicit." She trembled with rage. Then she turned and left. I went back to reviewing the Day 14 inspection checklist. Thursday morning, Titan's team returned unannounced. Valerie walked in at 8:03 a.m. with calipers and a materials hardness tester. "Spot check," she said. We weren't ready. But the systems were in place. I walked her to the line, and she pulled parts at random. Measured. Tested. Reviewed documentation. Louise handled every question with precision. The parts held specification. The documentation matched. At 9:42 a.m., one of Titan's engineers asked the question that made my stomach drop. "Why did you ever change vendors if the original was reliable?" I looked at my father, who'd appeared during the inspection. He opened his mouth, but no words came. "The decision was made to reduce costs," I said. "It was a mistake. I wasn't part of that decision, but I take responsibility for the recovery." Valerie wrote something in her notes. "We'll see you Day 14. If everything holds, we'll have a conversation about the go-forward contract." After they left, Dad and I stood in the empty production bay. "I was afraid," he finally said. "Afraid of conflict. Afraid of choosing wrong. So I chose the daughter who smiled and agreed with everything. And look where that got us," I said. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I'm signing a letter committing to keep your operational controls beyond the 30 days. Regardless of the outcome." I took the envelope. Inside was a board resolution, already signed. "It doesn't fix what I did to you," he said. "No," I said. "But it's a start." At 6:19 p.m., HR forwarded me an anonymous complaint. Multiple staff members report that Camille Hayes creates a culture of fear and micromanagement. I read it twice. Then I invited HR, Nina the auditor, and anyone who wanted to observe to attend the next shift change at 10 p.m. The shift change observation was simple. I stood with the incoming crew and reviewed the day's production. We talked through two minor issues, a measurement that came close to the limit and a delivery delay from a courier. I didn't yell. Didn't blame. Just asked questions. What happened? What can we do differently? Who needs support? One of the machinists, someone I didn't know well, raised his hand. "This is what Sloan called micromanagement?" "Apparently," I said. "It's just leadership," he said. Nina took notes. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. The anonymous complaints came from two managers whose bonuses were tied to speed targets. Targets that violated your quality gates. "Can you document that?" I asked. Already did, she said. At 11:34 p.m., a courier arrived with a legal envelope. Inside was a cease and desist letter from an attorney representing Sloan Hayes. It demanded I stop defaming Ms. Hayes through false claims regarding vendor management decisions. I scanned it. Forwarded it to my own attorney. Then replied to Sloan's lawyer with a single attachment, the vendor change document, signed by Sloan, with approval emails and dates. No commentary. Just facts. At 11:58 p.m., the power went out. Emergency lights flickered. The entire production line went dark. I grabbed my phone and ran to the floor. We switched to backup procedures I'd written 3 years ago. Manual logging. Battery-powered measurement tools. Staged work in progress in secured areas. IT traced the power surge to a tripped breaker in the prototype lab. Equipment had been left running after hours, pulling more load than the circuit could handle. By 3:47 a.m., power was restored. We'd lost 4 hours but saved the work in progress. Nothing was scrapped. At 6 a.m., I got an email from Valerie at Titan. Final inspection moved to Friday. Day 13, not day 14. Our schedule changed. Be ready. We'd lost 24 hours of buffer. I gathered the team at 7 a.m. We have 36 hours. Everything we've done comes down to this. Nobody complained. Nobody questioned. They just went to work. I spent Thursday spot checking every station, reviewing every measurement, verifying every document. At 9:47 p.m., I found my father standing alone in the observation area above the production floor. I used to love watching the line run, he said. Before everything got complicated. It's not complicated, I said. You just have to care about doing it right. He turned to me. I should have fought for you. When the board pressured me to choose Sloan. When your mother said you were too intense. I should have stood up. Yes, I said. You should have. We stood together in silence, watching the second shift work. The rhythm of machines. The precision of people who cared. If we survive this, he said, I'm going to make it right. We'll see, I said. At midnight, I watched the final unit move through inspection. Louis signed off. I signed off. The batch was complete. Now we just had to wait for Titan to arrive. Friday morning felt like waiting for a verdict. The team cleaned the production area like it was sacred ground. Tools organized. Documentation staged. Every surface wiped down. Malcolm Vance arrived at 8 a.m. Then Titan's team at 8:47 a.m. Then, unexpectedly, the full board of directors at 9:15 a.m. Valerie walked the line with her 2 engineers. They pulled samples. Measured. Tested. Reviewed batch travelers and deviation logs. Every measurement held. Every document matched. Every question had an answer. At 10:52 a.m., Valerie gathered us in the conference room. The board sat along one wall. Malcolm Vance sat beside them. My father and Sloan faced Valerie across the table. 0 defects, Valerie said. Full specification compliance. Complete documentation chain. I felt Louis exhale beside me. Based on this recovery and the operational controls we've observed, Valerie continued, Titan Aerospace is prepared to reinstate the contract. Not at $8 million. At $9.2 million annually, tied to the governance structure Ms. Hayes has implemented. Sloan started to speak, but Valerie held up a hand. That governance structure is non-negotiable, Valerie said. We're buying reliability, not speed. If these controls are removed, the contract terminates automatically. Malcolm Vance stood. The bank's position is identical. Financing continues only if these operational standards and their architect remain in place. He looked directly at me. The board members exchanged glances. Then the chairwoman spoke. We need to discuss this privately. Ms. Hayes, please wait outside. I stood in the hallway for 23 minutes. Through the glass, I could see Sloane talking, gesturing, pointing. I could see my father sitting still, hands folded. I could see the board members leaning together, conferring. At 11:34 a.m., the door opened. The chairwoman gestured me back inside. "We're invoking the performance reversion clause in full," she said. Effective immediately, Camille Hayes is appointed Chief Operating Officer with full authority over production, quality assurance, and vendor management. Sloane stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. "You can't do this. This is my company. Dad gave it to me." The chairwoman continued as if Sloane hadn't spoken. "The appointment is contingent on a board vote. All in favor?" I watched hands rise around the table. The bank representative. 3 board members. Nina, sitting as an observer, didn't vote but nodded slightly. Then my father's hand rose. Slowly, shaking, but it rose. "Motion carries," the chairwoman said. Sloane turned to Dad, face twisted with betrayal. "You're choosing her. Again." "I'm choosing the company," he said quietly. For the first time in a long time. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Valerie and her team left with signed contract documents. Malcolm scheduled his first weekly review. The board members filed out, congratulating me with careful handshakes. Sloane stood in the corner of the conference room, Trevor beside her, both of them looking like survivors of something they hadn't seen coming. I waited until everyone else had left. Then I approached them. "I'd like to offer you a clean exit," I said. 12 months of salary continuation. Benefits maintained. And if you want it, I'll fund a management training course at any institution you choose. No public statements about the transition. No blame. Sloane stared at me. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're still my sister," I said. "And because burning bridges doesn't rebuild companies." She looked at the floor. For a long moment, nobody spoke. "I thought I could do this," she finally said. "I thought I was ready." "You weren't," I said. "But maybe someday you will be." Trevor put his hand on her shoulder. "We should go." I watched them leave. Sloane paused at the door, turned back like she wanted to say something, then walked out. My father was waiting in my office. "You didn't have to offer her that." "Yes," I said. "I did." He nodded slowly. "Your mother wants to have dinner tomorrow. Just the 3 of us. Would you come?" "Maybe," I said. "After I catch up on sleep." He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in a year. "Thank you, Camille. For everything." After he left, I sat at my desk, looking out at the production floor. The second shift was starting. The machines hummed with that familiar rhythm. Luis waved at me through the window. My phone buzzed. A text from one of the younger machinists, "Thank you for coming back." I didn't reply. I just watched the line run, steady and precise, the way it was always meant to. Saturday morning, I came in early to find the entire weekend crew gathered in the break room. Someone had brought donuts. Someone else had made coffee in the industrial percolator we only used for holidays. "What's this?" I asked. Luis grinned. "We wanted to say thank you. Properly." They'd made a banner from production paper, "Welcome back, Camille." I felt something crack in my chest, that careful armor I'd worn for a year. These were the people who'd kept working when leadership failed them. Who'd trusted me when I came back. Who'd worked midnight shifts to save a company that had barely valued them. "Thank you," I said. "But this isn't about me. It's about all of us." One of the quality inspectors, a woman named Angela who'd been here 15 years, spoke up. "It is about you. You came back when you had every reason to walk away. You fought for us. Now we want to fight for you." I looked around the room at faces I'd trained, mentored, worked beside. "Then let's keep doing what we did these past 2 weeks. Let's run it right. They clapped. Someone handed me a donut. And for the first time in a year, I felt like I was home. The rest of Saturday I spent documenting the recovery. Every decision. Every timeline. Every lesson learned. I created a presentation for Monday's board meeting outlining the operational standards that would remain permanent. At 3:17 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Camille. Ms. Hayes, this is Valerie Cross. I wanted to follow up on one item from yesterday. My stomach tightened. Yes? Titan is expanding our aerospace division. We'll be opening a new facility in South Carolina next year. We're going to need a manufacturing partner who can scale with us. Would Hayes Precision be interested in bidding? I sat down. Yes. Absolutely yes. Good. I'll send the preliminary specs Monday. This would be a multi-year contract, substantially larger than what we've done together. But it requires the same operational discipline you've demonstrated. Understood, I said. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the afternoon sun angle across the production floor. A year ago, I'd walked out of this building with a cardboard box and a betrayal so deep I thought I'd never recover. Now I was rebuilding something better than before. Not just saving it. Building it. Monday's board meeting was different from any I'd attended before. I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't explaining failures. I was presenting strategy. I outlined the operational framework, mandatory quality gates, dual signature vendor approvals, regular calibration schedules, documented deviation processes, weekly production reviews. Then I presented the financial impact, reduced scrap, improved on-time delivery, stronger client confidence, and the new opportunity with Titan's expansion. The board approved everything unanimously. Afterward, the chairwoman pulled me aside. Your father told me what happened last year. How the succession was handled. I wasn't on the board then, but I want you to know, it was wrong. Thank you, I said. He's stepping back from daily operations, she continued. The board would like you to report directly to us going forward. He'll remain chairman, but you'll have full operational independence. It was what I'd needed a year ago. Now it felt like just the beginning. That evening, I had dinner with my parents. My mother cried and apologized. My father was quiet, but he looked lighter somehow, like he'd put down something heavy. Sloan called today, my mother said. She's enrolling in a management program at Chapel Hill. She says she wants to learn how to do this right. Good, I said. And I meant it. Are you happy, Camille? My mother asked. I thought about it. About the production floor running smoothly. About Luis and Angela and the weekend crew. About Titan's expansion opportunity. About sleeping without the ache of betrayal. I'm getting there, I said. 3 months later, Hayes Precision Components signed the contract for Titan's South Carolina expansion. $23 million over 3 years. It was the largest contract in company history. We hired 12 new employees. Upgraded 2 production lines. Built a dedicated quality lab. I promoted Luis to production manager and Angela to senior quality inspector. The prototype lab reopened under strict resource allocation. Trevor was gone, but Sloan's speculative project actually showed promise. I assigned it to a proper engineering team with realistic timelines and budget constraints. My father attended board meetings but rarely visited the floor. When he did, he'd stand in the observation area and watch, the way he used to when I first started working here 15 years ago. One afternoon, he found me in the quality lab reviewing calibration records. I saw something today, he said. On your desk. The banner from that weekend crew. I'd kept it, rolled up in the corner of my office. They made it when I came back. They love you, he said. The way they never quite loved me. They respect consistency, I said. And honesty. He nodded. I'm proud of you, Camille. I should have said that more. You should have shown it more, I said. I know, he said. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough to erase the betrayal. But it was something. 6 months after the Titan recovery, Nina completed her final audit report. Hayes Precision Components received the highest operational rating in company history. The bank removed all covenant restrictions. Malcolm Vance sent a personal note, "This is how manufacturing should be done." Sloan finished her management program. She called me one Sunday afternoon. "I'm not asking for my job back," she said. "I just wanted you to know I understand now. What you were trying to teach me. Why the shortcuts mattered. Why the systems existed." "Good," I said. "Are you still angry?" she asked. I thought about it. "No. I'm just tired of being angry." "Me too," she said. We talked for 20 minutes. About her coursework. About the company. About the family dynamics that had broken between us. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. But it was the beginning of something less damaged. That night, I drove past Hayes Precision on my way home from dinner. The lights were on in the production bay. Second shift running smoothly. The parking lot half full with cars belonging to people who cared about their work. I'd built this. Lost it. Fought to save it. And now it was mine again, not through inheritance or favoritism, but through competence and persistence. My revenge wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It was simply this: I ran it right, and everyone who showed up got to build the future with me. A year after the board call that changed everything, I stood on the production floor during first shift change. The team was debriefing the previous night's run. Smooth. On time. Zero defects. Luis approached with a tablet. The first pallet for Titan's South Carolina facility just shipped. Ahead of schedule. I pulled up the tracking. Everything documented. Every measurement verified. Every signature in place. "Nice work," I said. Angela joined us. Also, the new quality inspector you hired asked if you'd train her on the calibration protocols. She wants to learn the original system. "Tell her I'll be there this afternoon," I said. I walked through the plant, past machines humming with that steady rhythm, past whiteboards filled with metrics and schedules, past people who knew their work mattered. My father was standing near the observation window. He looked smaller than he used to, older, but somehow more at peace. "It sounds like it used to," he said when I joined him. "Before everything got complicated." "It was never complicated," I said. "We just forgot what mattered." He nodded. "I'm glad you came back." "So am I," I said. And I meant it. Later that afternoon, I sat in my office reviewing next quarter's production schedule. On the wall beside my desk hung 3 things: the weekend cruise banner, the Titan contract, and a photo of the production floor from my first year at Hayes Precision, when I was just learning what it meant to build something that lasted. My phone buzzed. A text from Valerie at Titan, expansion facility ahead of schedule. "Your team's work is exceptional. Thank you for being a partner we can trust." I set the phone down and looked out at the floor. At the people working. At the systems running. At the future we were building together. This was my revenge, not in destroying what hurt me, but in saving it and making it better than it ever was before. The people who showed up, who cared, who did the work right, they got to build the future with me. And that was enough. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you? Please share below and subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine.